Alright guys, so here's the thing. When I was in college and about to be out of college, I became super obsessed with making money, investing money, building a business, and also just rich people overall, because I knew if I wanted to be wealthy and have passive income, I needed to find out who those people were, what they did, and I wanted to copy them because, you know, monkey see, monkey do and all this stuff. So one big pattern that I did see was this. Whenever I got the chance to ask someone that was making a lot of money or was already wealthy or was exactly where I wanted to be, the advice they gave me was always different from what they did to actually get a lot of money, right? It kind of sounds weird, but the advice is this, and then what they did is something different. It's kind of like that saying that says, do as I tell you, don't do as I do. And the more I get to this point of actually having wealth and all this stuff, whenever people ask me for advice, I never tell them to do what I did in the beginning because it was super risky and it could have been a whole different story today. So the advice I usually give them is a lot more different from what I did. So if you're watching this video and your goal is to build up passive income, by the way, passive income is cool stuff, but the goal is to build up passive income, but enough of it to cover all of your expenses. So that way, if you work, it's because you want to work. And that way, if you lose your job, something crazy happens, you're okay because you have more money coming in than you actually have going out. That is the whole idea. And the less expenses you have, the less money you're gonna need to build in passive income, so that way you can get there a lot faster. So in this video right here, I'm gonna tell you what I did, which I don't recommend, and I'm also gonna tell you the advice I would give you if I was starting over and trying to build passive income after or while I was in college, okay? And as always, destroy the like button. I appreciate it a ton. On top, if you're new here, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified because I do post videos every single week on passive income, investing, and more detailed videos. So subscribe to keep up to date with all that good stuff. Now, the very first thing is, I'll tell you what I did. I don't recommend this, okay? First things first. First thing I did was I did not move out of my mom's house until I was 24 years old. And a big part of it was I wanted to make sure when I left my mom's house, I did not want to come back. And not, by the way, my mom was amazing. It was a great household. It wasn't toxic or anything like that. But a big part of it was I knew I was going to save a lot of money while I stayed there. And I also knew because I was flipping things like crazy. I was buying and selling. I knew a lot of the people I bought furniture and things from, a lot of those folks were people that moved out way too early. And then all of a sudden, they couldn't afford anything and they had to move back with their parents. So they sold me their TVs, they sold me their tables, they sold me a lot of stuff. And I did not want to be in that position. Same thing I did, guys, okay? While I was in my mom's house and trying to build passive income, I hustled like crazy. So time and patience and breaks and longevity and long-term stuff did not exist for me. My whole thing was I was gonna have a job, which I did, to earn as much money as I possibly could, which wasn't that much money at the time, by the way. It was data entering. I also had a side hustle, which was flipping phones and buying and reselling things on eBay. On top of that, I was building a side business with my accounting skills to actually earn me some money. And by the way, before YouTube became a thing, I built up around 100K in capital and also like $6,000 to $8,000 in income every single month. So I built up this business through a lot of work. And then once YouTube came about, that's the third step here, I started to diversify my investments by investing that YouTube money, for example, into the stock market to build up even more passive income. But the story you guys never hear is this, because that's what it sounds like, which sounds very pretty. You know, you work hard, you push, you build, and all of a sudden when you move out, you'll be good, you'll be solid. But to be more honest and more detailed, here's the big thing. When I stayed at home at my mom's house, I wasn't basically using the money to basically live out a lifestyle. I was just basically grabbing all that money and using it for one purpose, was to make more money. I stayed there to save money and to lower my expenses. I would give my mom some money, yes, but I was basically just hoarding and hurting and basically investing as much money as possible. On top of that, there were several businesses that did not make it. I tried drop shipping, I tried advertising, I tried several YouTube channels for like 10 years that did not work out. I tried a load of things that basically just failed, I hated, or just did not work. And on top of that, I borrowed around $30,000 to $50,000 and I recycled that money like a credit card to be able to earn so much money so fast, because the more risks I took, the more potential I had to make a lot of money, but the more potential I also had to just screw things over. So whenever you hear this story that by the time I was like basically 25 years old, I basically had over $500,000 and I had all this stuff, great stuff, right? But that's not the whole story, because if you did what I did, I would call it kind of like a black swan effect or event. I got extremely lucky. If things did not go my way, at least 2 to 3 things, everything would have crashed and I would have basically been in a whole different position. But the good thing is though, because things did go out correctly, by the time I did move out of my mom's house, I moved 4 times, by the way. Moved from my mom's house to an apartment, another apartment, to now the house where I live right now, all in 1 year, by the way. And I own this home, paid for in full, have my investments that earn me around, like, I would say like the market is down right now, so like we're down like to like around $30,000 in passive income a year. And I also have extra cash and capital, which I'm gonna have to use for something else, but that's another day for another video, okay? More on that later in this video, so stick around till the end of this video, okay? But that's what I did, which was very risky, and I don't recommend it, because if I screwed things over, I would have been stuck in this massive deep hole, and it would have taken me years to get out of it, years. So that's why I don't recommend you do what I do, but I recommend you do as I say. So here's what I recommend that you actually do. The first thing is you want to protect your biggest assets, and the biggest assets you possibly have are basically your income and also you. When you're fresh out of college or you're in college and you have a job, you have income, that is your biggest asset. I always consider my job as my investor, my seed capital. That's where I would basically make my money from. But I see that a lot of people basically, they go to college, they graduate, all of a sudden they're earning more money than they ever had in their entire life. Let's say they're earning $4,000 basically a month. They're like, oh my gosh, so much money. Then 12 months later, I talk to them and they're like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I don't know what happened. What happened is you rented a crazy cool apartment, which is cool, but too expensive. You also spend all your money on takeout on Uber Eats, and you also just basically have a bunch of liabilities. You added credit card debt, you added a bunch of stuff, and you didn't even pay your student loan debts off, okay? So what you have here is things took your most important asset, which is income, and you also have a car loan. So all these things combined, they just basically steal and steal and steal from your income. And once you hit a point where all you do is work to pay bills, that's a bad position, because the only way to actually get away from that is to either get additional work, which means more hours, more effort, or to start cutting things off and then downgrading your lifestyle. That's one thing I didn't want to do. I always wanted to basically, I'd rather just stay all the way. By the way, the way I see things is, I always have an immigrant mindset because I come from a family of immigrants, and the whole thing is, when I was growing up, my mom and also my dad and my grandma always told me these stories about when I was a kid, I lived next to a river. We didn't have money for this. We didn't spend money on that. So I took that same mentality and I was like, I'm gonna live like that until I don't have to live like that, but to make sure I never have to live like that again. So I was willing to say, I'm gonna live this lifestyle where I'm with my mom, I'm in the small apartment, in a little better apartment, and then I buy my own home, but I'm not gonna go from here to here when I can't be here and then have to go back down. So that's the whole mindset here. It's okay, you just graduated, get a little room or get a little studio apartment and then basically just hustle, put your head down and basically work and protect your assets. That's the big thing. Second thing is, you have to remove all the friction when it comes to your income. That friction is usually going to be number one, debt. So you have usually student loan debt when you graduate. I made a big mistake. With all this, for example, like, oh, there is no interest on the student loan debt. We're gonna pause it, we're gonna forgive it. I kind of held off that money and not paid it off, and then something popped up and I needed to use that money, and now I gotta go ahead and pay that stuff again, okay? That's the whole thing. But when you remove friction, which is usually debt, you have more income available to you to do the things that you actually want to do. So the first step I would do before investing or passive income or even thinking about that is pay off the credit card debt, pay off the student loan debt, pay off all the debt except the mortgage if you got one of those already, okay? And I would use the avalanche method to pay off my debt. That means you pay off the debt with the highest interest rate first to save money mathematically. Once you're done with that, you have, for example, less friction. When you get a paycheck, that paycheck is yours. I know the feeling of getting a paycheck and all the money goes somewhere else and you're left with basically nickels and dimes. Not a good feeling. Third thing you want to do, you want to build a foundation. I don't care how smart you are, how cool you are, at some point, something is going to happen in your life that is going to be something unexpected. And when that does happen, whether somebody passes away, whether you break a bone, whether you get into a car accident, whether your car breaks down, whether you lose your job, whether you get a divorce, whether you have to, whatever it is, bankruptcies, like a lot of stuff happens in this earth, okay? The big thing is you want to have a safety net, your own emergency fund. And what I see is people make mistakes where they kind of go ahead and start investing first. Something happens and now they gotta either stop their investments. That's happened to me recently, by the way, or they have to take money from their investments to be able to basically do whatever they gotta do. You never wanna interrupt investments and you never wanna basically take money out of investments. But the worst is to take money out of investments because obviously you're giving up something that you already have building up. That's not good. Plus taxes, terrible idea, okay? That's the whole thing. So you build up an emergency fund. 3 months minimum, 6 months ideal. But if you have, for example, a job that's very, how would I say, the money goes up, it goes down, fluctuates, you don't know how much money you're gonna make tomorrow, 12 months is perfect. This way, you don't gotta worry for 12 months if you lose your job or anything crazy happens. That's a good feeling to know, hey, anything goes wrong, I have time to figure it out. It gives you a lot more leverage when you want to leave a job. It gives you a lot more leverage when something happens crazy in your life. You just have time to figure things out. When my dad passed away, that was awesome. Not that happened, obviously, but it was awesome that I had an emergency fund to be able to say, hey, I want to kind of just chill and figure things out while this is going on, and I process this stuff, but I didn't have to go to work immediately or anything like that because things happen. Things are gonna happen. Now, once you're done building those things up, here's the part where you actually start building up, for example, your wealth, where you start worrying about passive income. Passive income is just one piece of the equation. People think, well, if I have passive income, then that's good. But in reality, passive income can also fluctuate. Passive income can also stop. Things can happen. So the big thing is you want to work towards passive income, but also while you're working towards lowering your cost of living overall. So how do you do that? You lower the number one cost of living that we're all going to have, okay? And that's basically shelter, where you live. I never recommend you spend more than 33% of your monthly income on shelter. So whenever it comes to buying a house, I use the 33% rule on a 15-year mortgage. That means the home that I buy is no more than a third of my monthly income on a 15-year mortgage. And I also want to have enough money left over to pay extra towards it. And I want to put down at least 10 to 20% down payment. That sounds like a lot, but it's simple. The reason you don't get the 30-year mortgage is basically it enables you to buy something a lot more expensive, even though it's more time, but the goal is to pay it off as fast as possible. Remember, the quicker you're done paying off a home, that expense is no longer there. You have all this built up equity, you have lower expenses, thus you need less passive income, thus you get a lot more leverage and mobility when it comes to what you're able to do in life because you don't gotta worry about paying rent or mortgage anymore. Now, how do you pay off this mortgage thing while you're also investing? And should you be investing? The answer is yes. To build up passive income, I recommend you invest into index funds. Investing, for example, just into the S&P 500 is fine. Warren Buffett does that. I don't do it because I am not that trusting to say that America is going to be #1 forever. So I have a portfolio of 5 investments. I have money in the S&P 500, which is basically the 500 largest companies in the US, into the small cap market in the US. I also have international companies that are big and large. I also have money into real estate, and I also have money into emerging companies outside of the US. Okay, so this way, the only way my investments fail if it's the whole world goes down into fire. And at that point, currency and assets, they really don't matter as much. So that's a big issue. But this way, you're more safe overall. If you want to copy the way I invest, I have a link down below to M1 Finance. When you click that link, you can copy those investments either into your retirement account, either into, for example, open account right there, whatever you want to do, okay? That's the way I invest. 10 to 20% of your income. Tommy, what if I have extra money to spend on my investments? The answer is don't do it. And here's why. Because you investing money into the stock market, it compounds, it builds up over time, but you can't control that. So let's say you build up an investment account of $500,000, which is awesome, and now you're retired. The next day the market is down by like half. That can happen. What do you do now? You got to go back to work. You can't control it. So just by doing 20%, 10 to 20% is fine. 15% sweet spot, but 20% even better. And then, so if you're doing this, investing 20% consistently, automatic index funds, passive income over time, build up, great. And then you're also buying a home or saving up for a home. Once you buy the home, if you have extra money left over, you use it to pay it off as fast as possible. Now, here's a scenario because my mind works with real examples, okay? So let's say you have an income of $4,000, right? And you spend 70% of your income basically on your expenses. So that means shelter, which is your mortgage. That means utilities. That means groceries. That means transportation, healthcare. All that stuff is just 70%. So $2,800 is going towards basically you actually living. But at this rate, you also invest, for example, 20%, which is $800 a month into your 401k to get the match, and the rest into your Roth IRA to actually build up some investments that are basically tax-free overall, okay? So that's great. And then what do you have left? You have left over 10%. If you use that 10%, which is $400, to basically pay off the mortgage a lot faster, what happens is this. If you use the rule of the 33% rule on a 4K income, your budget would be like around $1,320 per month or so. So that means you can buy a home that's around $85,000 total. You're putting down 20%, which is around like $40,000. So you buy this home by paying an extra 10% of your income, you'll be done in 10 years instead of 15 years, which is amazing. And that's basically like a lot faster than 30 years. So in 10 years, you're fully done paying off this mortgage, you own the home. While you're paying off that mortgage, we're also building up, for example, an investment account, investing 20% of your income. That account at 12% return has grown to $188,000, which is amazing. And on top of that, you have no debts, you have an emergency account fully built up. So what happens is this: if you have a paid off home, the only expense with this home is gonna be, for example, property tax, maintenance, and also insurance. That might be like 5% of your income. So now your cost of living goes from 70% to, let's say, maybe it goes down to maybe like 43% of your income. And then you're still investing the same 20%. That means you have left over around like 37% of your money to do whatever you want. Now, 37% of $4,000 is somewhere around like $1,480. With $1,480, you're able to either do a few things here. You can grab this money, have fun with it, give it away, or invest a lot more of it. Now, what I would do is basically say, well, I'm gonna keep investing my 20% to grow that account over time. I'm gonna stay with my home that's fully paid off, not gonna switch around it. But every 5 years or so, right, this money in savings turns into like around $88,000. Every 5 years, you're able to buy a condo, a house somewhere, or like a property overall to actually get you some cash flow every single month additional. If you do this for 20 years, what happens is over 20 years, $88,000 multiplied by let's do 4 times, right? Because it's basically over 20 years. You're doing it every 5 years. You have over $352,000 built up in equity in properties you basically own outright, which is an extra $2,000, let's say, on average, on like in passive income per month. On top of that, your investments, if you kept investing at 20%, grew to around, I have the numbers right here because I like to be exact about everything. Your investments grew to around $2.5 million, which is a big deal. The home you bought for $180 grows to about $436,000 at a 3% growth rate every year after 30 years, basically. That's awesome. And you also have, for example, $388,000 also build up in equity in other properties. So over 30 years, you have this massive portfolio, but just in the first 10 years, you're basically living in a way where you don't have to worry about anything. So it's like a 10-year thing to get to this deal of passive income. So if you're 24, just graduated college or whatever, you're 34. If you're 30, you're 40. If you're 40, you're 50. If you're 60, you're 70 or whatever, okay? But the idea is, this idea that you're gonna build passive income over time is very possible. But the faster you want to build it, the more risks you have to take. And the more risks you take, the more the odds are not in your favor, and you're probably going to have to start over at several points, and that's not what you want to do. Now, one piece of advice that I want to give you, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, is remember, I'm assuming you make $4,000 and that's all you make forever, okay? That's it. But while you're doing this plan, if you're insane and crazy, like I basically was, the big thing is what you can do is basically, you can just have a side hustle or a business you build on the side to basically increase your income, or get another job to make even more money. And then you can basically get there a lot faster. That's how I got there a lot faster, by doing so many things and building up so much money and having no expenses, to the point where I can just basically get there a lot faster. Now, my big issue was, guys, okay, I skipped step 1, I skipped step 2, and I went straight to step 3, and I didn't even save for a home. But then I finally got to the point where it's like, yo, this stuff isn't gonna work out. Let me buy this home. I bought the home, but I still needed to pay off, for example, student loan debt, and that kind of reversed things on me. So then I had this whole thing that popped up on me. Like I tell you guys, things pop up all the time, and now I have to pay that. But the good thing is I have my investments built up, I have a paid off home. So with all these things that are basically making sure that everything's fine and will be fine, I don't have to worry that much. But imagine if I were in a different spot, again, things could be a lot worse. That's why I'm saying, don't do as I did, do as I tell you. Because what I'm telling you is the more efficient, reliable way. And that's why so many people back then told me, Tommy, don't do what I did. That was a different time and I was kind of stupid. Do this. This is a lot smarter. It takes a little longer, but you'll get there a lot safer and a lot better, and you'll be in better shape than I was, okay? Because I gave up everything. My health was deteriorated, relationships deteriorated, just for the sake of this one goal. And if I would have done it this way, it would have taken me like 2 years extra, and it would have been a lot better overall. But guys, that is it. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, comment down below passive, so I know you made it all the way to the end of the video. So for that person that DM'd me on Instagram and also commented down below, I read the comments. I read them all, okay? So I saw your comments. I read it. Let me show you guys, okay, guys? So you guys know, like I read the comments, okay, and I read the DMs. I'm always looking at them, and I basically answer them. So if you have a question, comment down below. If you have anything you want to talk to me about, DM me. Like, I'll read it, I'll answer it, and I'll make a video about it sometimes if I feel like the comment or the question is like needed to be said on a wider scale. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified. Up here is another video. Over here is my face. Click subscribe, and as always, long-term team officially out.